think it's obvious from the things we've heard. It's a no-brainer that you would like to have detailed information at the proteomic level on abundances of proteins and modifications, how they change, and conditions, so on and so on. That's pretty much, if you have a choice between a detailed transcriptome and a detailed proteome, I think it's from my perspective, it's a non-brainer that you pick the proteome. But of course, you don't today. And the problem is that the technology follows approximately the flow of biological information. And proteomics has lagged behind the ability to measure transcriptomes and sequence genomes. And the other key point is that as the technologies evolve, new capabilities develop, new things become possible. So that's the context which I want to talk about proteomics in a little bit of detail.St, just what can we do with proteomics? Verifying genes, find start positions, reduce unannotated hypothetical proteins, finding the less expected, identifying misgenes, unexpected frame shifts, all those possible, providing detailed information on post-translational processing. As just pointed out, the phosphoproteome is tremendously important. It's one that we measure more and more routinely in our lab. Learning about cellular localization helps us a lot of what's going on. So helping define gene functions and annotation, but really enabling broadly systems biology. If we can really do proteomics much more effectively, a lot more would be feasible in large areas of biological research. So let me just briefly outline what is the conventional approach to proteomics now, and shotgun proteomics, if you will, was first done by, I would say, John Yates in the late 90s, and basically the process is protein from any source. Typically proteolysis, by trypsin, LC, MS analysis, high quality LC separation, very high quality in the kind of work that we do. And so here's the interesting part. So during this LC separation, you have this horribly complex mixture of potentially many millions of peptides that are detectable. At any one time during the separation, you get a mass spectrum that would have maybe hundreds of peptides being detectable in it. And then you need to get a tandem mass spectrum, which is basically a fragmentation of one of those peptides that gives you the information necessary for identification based on genome sequence information or other information. And you can do that, and the capabilities for doing that become more and more effective, and you can create these spectra at the rate of maybe a few per second and identify peptides that are close to that rate. But that's where the technology runs out of steam. And basically, having said that, this is an approach we apply quite broadly in our laboratory. The twist that we added to this in the late 90s was to combine this approach with the use of very high resolution separations and very high accuracy mass spectrometry, and from this information to create what we call accurate mass and time tags, basically a well-identified peptide, and then that enabled us to make measurements after that point with these good separations and mass spectrometry to do many measurements of related proteins from our organisms under many different conditions. So on the left is a depiction of the results of many of these shotgun proteomics measurements. So by doing many measurements, you overcome the disadvantages of the stochastic nature of the measurements. You presumably get very high coverage of the proteome after you've done this a lot. And then once we've done that, the situation on the right, we can make this very high quality measurement. Some fraction of the peptides can be identified, and this allows us to infer the proteins in many cases. Measurements of peak intensities and so on allow this to be done on relative quantitation and more often absolute quantitative basis. So that's a technique that our lab has put a lot of effort into, and does quite routinely at the present time. So I'm going to go on to the kind of information you can get from proteomics. And basically, the first level of information, you obviously get the polypeptide sequence, you confirm expression of the protein, get information on relative and absolute abundances. And there's a lot going on in this area, how to do this better. There's use of stable isotope methods, absolute peak, intensity peak areas. And it's not entirely clear what the best approaches are, but quite precise measurements with coefficients of variation in the range of 10% are now achievable quite broadly. Of course, that falls off as you go to very low abundances. And protein modifications are really one of the key attributes of mass spectrometry-based proteins. In fact, the only effective approach to broadly identify protein modifications. So the other things you can do when you have the ability to make broad proteomic measurements, you can look broadly at protein turnover. There's a number of nice studies that appeared so far in the literature showing how this can be done. It involves introducing stable isotope label in some fashion. You can look at cellular localization by subcellular fractionation. I'll show you an example of that. You can do direct measurements of protein activity. This is work out of Dan Krappet's lab at Scripps, who pioneered this area. I'll talk about some of the work in our lab in this area. We've got Aaron White from the postdoc with Ben is coming to our lab and has developed the multiplexed activity-based proteomics approaches that I think are going to be really important in a number of areas. You can do comparative studies, obviously, of whatever, and studies of really complex systems. And there are quite a number of studies going on now with microbial communities, and I think as informatics challenges are better addressed, we'll see a lot of exciting developments in this area. And you obviously look at temporal and spatial variations. At the present in our lab, we have these AMT tag databases for about 150 different organisms, cover a range of bacteria, fungi, plants, mammals, and microbial communities. We currently have a small effort now looking at a set of the viva organisms. Just an example of where you can apply high throughput. This is a study that's done in conjunction with Desmond Smith at UCLA, where he voxylates mouse grain into little tiny cubes. In this case, about 700 cubes of this mouse grain. And we're able to get quantitative measurements looking at the variation in protein abundances across this admittedly low resolution mouse brain image, but incredibly detailed as far as the proteomic information. And information on over 2,000 proteins in general, but quantitative information on 1,000. That's just an example of what can be done, and there would be no way to approach that by shotgun proteomics at present. It's something that's become feasible. Cellular localization, an example in conjunction with Sam Kaplan and Ken Donahue. In this case, this data shows for comparison of aerobic and photosynthetic cultures, subcellular fractionation, and in this case, the localization is established for 1,500 proteins. There were 70 proteins enriched in the chromatophore and 10 unique to that fraction, and 7 8 of them were quite well known. 2 unknown function, and mutation of either results in the failure to grow photosynthetically. And that's what happened. So these kinds of measurements are quite feasible at the present time. Post-translational modifications, what can be done with proteomics, and obviously it's important because modifications modulate localization, interaction functions, data proteins. As I've already said, mass spectrometry is the only broadly applicable approach. If we have the ability to enrich a subproteome, proteomics is quite effective. And I've already said in our lab, we regularly look at the phosphoproteome, because there are quite effective approaches now for enrichment of this subproteome. And N-linked glycosylation, identifying the protein sites of glycosylation. And when the O-link is also a really an effective approach and quite useful, providing added information. And also, when we do broad proteomic studies, an important point is that we're looking broadly. We're looking at everything that's there in the shotgun methods. And if you look at that plot I showed earlier, where some of the spots actually are used to identify proteins, a lot of them are missed. What's going on there? Well, a lot of them, and that gets to a fundamental weakness in the current proteomics approaches, where the informatics approaches really have to catch up. But basically what we do in the identification process is compare to a list of things that we think we have. And the ability at the present time to deal with and identify significant sequence variants or unexpected modifications is more limited. There are some nice efforts going on in various laboratories, and we're interacting with Pavel Hepner's group at UCSD. We're developing some improved informatics tools that are really helping address those issues so that a lot of this information, which is present in the data being accumulated, presently largely being ignored, can really be extracted from these data sets. So one example of this, and this is work in conjunction with Hepner's lab, and some of the tools that they developed, and they did some extensive work with the Schumanella proteomic data sets, acquired our lab, in this case, M1. And an important aspect here is that you really want to have high confidence in the data. And one of the weaknesses of a lot of proteomics work that we've done early on is that there's been very high false discovery rates. For example, you don't want to see Tyrannosaurus rex protein in your bacterial culture, but by some of the standards that have been used in the literature, we've seen it. And so you have to be careful. You have to apply statistically based approaches and achieve good levels of confidence. But given that, and this is in conjunction with the Pavel's lab, quite a bit of information can be extracted from these data sets. In this case, a lot of information on internal processing and other modifications to Schumanella. The initial study found in Schumanella over 4,000 modification sites scattered across 1,600 proteins. There were 24 common modifications observed: oxidation, methylation, dimethylation, formylation, and so on. Comparative analysis across different strains found more than 20 modifications found in at least 2 strains on the same position. Autologous proteins, so again, very high level of confidence. And a really fascinating thing is there are a lot of less frequent, lower level, interesting modifications that aren't really well characterized. This is just one example. This larger scale study allows identification of very low frequency modifications. I found at 3 different sites on tryptophan. At this point, we know it has a 48 dalton mass difference. That's introduced. I'm not sure what. So I mentioned that there's quite good ability to identify modifications to proteins based on those mass differences. You can use that ability in another way. That's what's used in the activity-based proteomics in a sense. The basic idea here is that you have a compound that binds irreversibly to the protein at the enzymatic site. This protein, this probe can be made small enough to be membrane permeable, so it can be used in vivo using the approaches called quick chemistry. You can attach the reporter entity, in this case a biotin functionality, so the proteins that are recovered from the activity-based probe can be pulled down after the fact. And so this is an effective approach if you have once you design this binding entity, to pull out protein based on how active they are, binding to this active site, which can, of course, differ significantly from the abundance of that protein in the absence of information on modifications and localization and so on. So it's a tremendously effective approach for looking for activity, and I think it would be a number of systems that could be quite interesting, for example, in microbial communities and so on. So what we're doing, what Aaron White in our laboratory is doing, and he brought in a number of these activity-based probes from Fabrics Lab, is developing a set of probes for multiplexing. So this is basically just using the ability to identify modifications, in this case the mass differences associated with those different activity-based probes, so we can do many of these experiments in parallel in one measurement. And at the right to see a list of the enzyme families initially targeted, and part of those are obviously due to the history of the probe that Aaron has brought into our. So at present, at our lab, as I mentioned, we have AMT tags for libraries for over 150 organisms, resulted from 140,000 LC-MS analyses. These are multi-hour measurements, over 2 billion mass spectra. So a lot of work, a lot of effort by a lot of really good people. However, the throughput is within a factor of 2 or 3 of the theoretical maximum for the present approach. And so you can scale up by more automation, spending a lot of money for equipment. And as I've indicated, the throughput is a limitation for about everything you want to do. If you decide you want to dig much deeper into a proteome because you're interested in a microbial community, the approach to that is basically doing more fractionation. And that means you have to make more measurements. If you want to more broadly cover protein modification, you need to make more measurements. So the throughput becomes tremendously important. And there is a fundamental physical limitation. I won't go into the details of why, but I'd be happy to talk about it later. There's real fundamental physics constraints to what can be done with the platforms that are currently being used. It limits you to measurements of the number of ions actually that can be measured to about 10 to the 6 per second for a conventional LC-MS experiment, and even worse for the shotgun proteomics. It's less than 10 to the 5th. That has to do with the trap capacities for the ion traps and so on. So the last thing I want to talk about is development in our lab and how to increase this. And basically, it involves 2 parts. One, creating a lot more ions, and that's something that we focused on for a long time. And then doing separations a lot faster. Part of this is very high-speed LC separations, but the second part, if you don't have enough separation power to really do what you like to do, is to have fast gas-phase separations, and ion mobility separations, and use a different kind of mass spectrometry technology conventionally used in most of the studies, the time-of-flight mass spectrometry, because spectra are required at a rate of 10,000 per second. Typically, people who use these type of mass spectrometers are not aware of that because in the background, the instruments sum 10,000 or 20,000 spectra and show you one spectra every couple of seconds. But in fact, there is a lot more, but usually they're not getting enough signal. And but you change that situation if you cram more ions down through the experiment. So that's basically what this approach to proteomics does. So I won't bore you with the validation, verification of that assertion that we've gone through over the last 6 months. Just point out one comparison of the existing platform with the best other platform in our laboratory. This is a Schumanella proteome, where in this experiment we detect about 20,000 peptides, features after collapsing the information, isotopic distribution, and so on. So about 20,000 different species are detected. With a conventional platform, it's a little over 7,000. So we're digging much deeper into the proteome, and we're doing it about an order of magnitude faster. So there are a couple of gains have there simultaneously. And the other part, and this is still a work in progress, is replacing the shotgun proteomics. And this again goes to the high accuracy of mass measurements and the abilities to use that to fragment multiple peptides simultaneously. In fact, all of them, because you have the additional ion mobility separation, and to basically circumvent the throughput at the shotgun proteomic level. And that's even a much more significant gain in throughput because of the very slow, once a second conventional method. So just to indicate what can be done. The platform based on the very high speed separation, mass spectrometry, high peptide analysis rates. Currently it's about 10 to the 8, 10 to the 90 per second, and can go significantly higher, maybe another order of magnitude 2, and enable a large rate, increase the rate of proteome data being generated. So that corresponds to at least 1 and 2 orders of magnitude faster than the current platforms, both the AMT tag approach, LC-MS-based proteomics, and 2 orders of magnitude for the shotgun type of measurements. And along with this, simultaneously, all the data shows better quality, so better quantitation and sensitivity, and which turns into proteome coverage. And it really provides the basis for doing a lot of other things that we would like to do better. So let me summarize those key points and then get on to what I think should happen next. We've obviously been limited greatly by throughput, and with the advances in throughput and informatics and computation, which has become a real important part of this, we have the ability to much more broadly sample proteomes, many different proteomes in broad quantitative studies. I think it's practical now to think of complementing every genome sequence with at least some level of proteomics data. So I would propose one path forward is to do exactly that, complement genome with proteomic level analyses at some level. And I would suggest global proteome analysis with, and then also cellular fractionation to get information on localization. And at the same time, you obviously generating an AMT tag database that will be useful later on. We're developing systems that are optimized and specialized for determination of phosphosites and liposites, N-linked and O-linked lipopeptides. And then the use of the multiplex affinity-based proteomics to provide an array of information on enzyme activities in really one broad analysis. And then we'd like to work with the JGI to make this information available. And a key point, a really important point, is that this is basic information that then provides the foundation for a lot of additional biological studies, a lot of different conditions, perturbations, studies of whatever turnover, so on, can be carried out much more. So that I'd like to close by saying that the work that are allowed, a few of us get to go out and talk about the work, but it's really a result of a large team effort. We have a large group of people who deal with some of you in the proteomic applications. There's a team that you don't see that actually does the work in the high throughput laboratory. There's another group that is involved in technology and capability development, next generation platform I talked about. And then there's a really crucial group that tries to keep the data under control and get the collaborators and develop some of the tools needed. And finally, there are collaborators, the support from DOE, and the important work we could raise about genomic sequence information. I should have made that point right at the beginning. Proteomics is based on genomics, we depend on it. And it's essential for effectiveness. Finally, let me thank you for your attention.
Got questions for Dick? Questions? So I have one. You suggest that there may be a future for the proteomics of complex metagenome samples. One of the, but you're going to match then proteomic tags with what are then sequence tags. There's a lot of information that's going to be left over that are going to be things that don't match because of post-translational modifications, other things. And those are things you'd really like to know a lot about.
Yeah.
And what's the path forward?
Yeah, and that's why I was referring to some nice work, in particular the work out of Hollow Peppers. But a number of other groups that are really beginning to address this challenge. Part of the approach that's, and really the basis of it is a two-pass approach. And once you've identified a set of proteins or peptides, then you have the ability to focus on sequence variants from that and modification. The fundamental thing you can't do is really, if you have absolutely no information on the system you're studying, and you consider all of peptide sequence space, all possible modifications, it's a no-good start, right? So you have to have some assumption. There has to be something you're basing the subsequent analysis on. And there are obviously traps there. You can make some missteps, but most of the time it doesn't apply. And so the two-pass approaches, you identify, for example, a peptide, you can look at quite readily at all the 2 or 1, 2, or 3 amino acid substitutions. You begin to look at a range of variants from that, a range of modifications. And that with the quality of the data being produced, still allows you to have good levels of confidence in the analysis.
Dick, what are the top 3 reasons that a biologist would want to have proteomic data, the microbe that JGI generates sequencing?
Well, on the microbe side, you guys obviously do really well with the annotation. So, but there's a lot of biology. And once you start working with these systems, even bacteria have post-translational modifications. A lot of fascinating biology going on. And then, of course, as you get to more complex systems, with eukaryotes, there's a fascinating interaction between the sites and sites of phosphorylation. Utilization targets proteins for proteasome and degradation and glycosylation. There's some nice work on glycan glycosylation. So all these interact and affect states of the protein and are important to biology. So I think as I said earlier, I think that there's a no-brainer that proteomics is really important. The limitations have been high due to the challenges. I mean, this isn't easy. And if you're in a small lab and you have a mass spectrometer and someone spent $1 million for it and say, measure this proteome, you're in a really tough spot. And we have the benefit of a large team that allows tackling those challenges. And once you get a lot of data, you really begin to see with clarity where the problems are. And you don't have replicates, you don't know what the variation is, and you're looking for that.
So it seems to me that the part of the bottleneck with the tandem, or with the proteomics is the first part where you're identifying, you're establishing the database of different proteins, and then once you've got that established, it's kind of smooth sailing from there. Is there anything on that end to help improve, I guess, that, or reduce that bottleneck?
Well, I think I referred to that at the end. And again, it's a work in progress, but we are multiplexing that association, and so taking the shotgun aspect out, and I think that will make a tremendous difference in the throughput. That's, as you point out, where even a bigger gain is achieved, and that's a couple of them.
Nature has a way of playing tricks on folks, so how confident are we that the affinity-based enzyme assays correlate with the activity on natural substrate?
Well, that's a good question, and I would refer you to the work of the Kravitz lab. We've really done a lot of work in this area, at least for a couple of other different activity-based probes at the present time. And once we start applying these broadly across with many different organisms, many different species, I think they're going to be interesting challenges. We'll learn something. We'll learn something about the binding of that particular probe, and it's going to take us a while to build up some level of confidence as to what that really is.